MysteriousJG. I just thought I was wrapping up a 30-minute video and then got to the point where I was going to stop the recorder and found out the recorder never started. This happens occasionally, maybe once every, 50 to 100 videos, but it's always ultra, ultra annoying. What I was actually doing was, I took a little time. I talked about what's wrong with the game and compared notes with things that Ravenite said in the comments and other things I've read and my own thoughts. And that was all cool and all, but now I don't remember any of it. And I don't know. It was a video. I talked a little bit about the vacation I just came back from. I thought I could record some stuff during my vacation. I wasn't able to. I'm literally out of everything on all my LPs. Like, I had old RTK stuff that I'd recorded before losing my save files of the Zhangwei Hero mode. That, Red Dead Redemption, and Mass Effect Andromeda. I'm completely out of all of it. As I record, I have nothing to upload tomorrow. So, it's Sunday afternoon. I need to get on with it. I don't have enough time to record as much as I wanted to, and I'm really angry at myself about having just lost a video. So, in the last video, like I said, I had about 8 minutes worth of talking about my vacation and this, that, or the other, and I'm not going to do any of that. I'm just going to jump into it now. I guess it's enough that you guys know. I've been away from the game for like a month, and I just wrapped up a video of what was going to be, and this is completely on a, just absolutely, completely on a whim, not pre-planned. I was like, hey, you know what? I've been talking for forever about doing a Codex video. Let's come back from vacation and just do some Codex videos to reacquaint ourselves with the story. So I read through I read through 30 minutes of Codex shit, which I'm now going to have to read again if you guys want to see it. But I don't know that I can make myself do that. So let's do the quick version. So the finding a home just recaps decision points you made, which led me into a big, long thing about how I think the real problem with this game is that the original Mass Effect game gave you several decisions that felt really important to the story universe. Rex can live or die. Either Ash or Kaiden has to die. You decide whether or not to save the Asari flagship and to, help the Council instead of trying to put humanity in charge. You decide. The big one is, really feels like it's going to be important to the universe, is does the Arachnite Queen live or not? You get little decision points like that. And over the fallout of 2 games, we eventually learned that it was just impossible to maintain a story that was going to keep building and building and building and giving you all these decision points and having these decision points have world epic consequence. And I think in some ways Mass Effect Andromeda is suffering from the hangover we still have from Mass Effect 3. Not that Mass Effect 3 was a fun drunk party, but we're still hungover from finding out that the Mass Effect 3 ending was going to be a big pile of shit because all the promises of all these decisions mattering that you used to get here, there was just no way for them to actually maintain something like this. You can't write interactive fiction. You can't have an epic ending to a story that's set years after the story began, where every single decision point that could have happened you have to incorporate in the ending. It always comes down to none of these things really seem to matter. So I'm getting into exactly what I said I wasn't going to do and just going off on tangents, but I spent a lot of time talking at the beginning of the video that has disappeared to the ages now about why this game's jacked up, and part of it is I think you can spot quickly and easily these decisions that the game acts like they're going to matter that won't matter. And the finding a home thing, it really brings that to your attention. You encounter the guy that I amusingly decided was Sanjay Dutt based entirely on the fact that he was bald and kind of had the Sanjay Dutt-ish skin tonation from it seemed to me. And he's talking about, there's this hidden underground cave society which you never get to reach in game, and you never interact with anybody from there except for this one character. It's totally off-screen world building that they want you to care about, even though you never see it. And you have this decision. You've got this drill. The Nexus wants you to put it here to get water. They want you to do something else. and one decision point will make those people in the secret cave society like you and more willing to work with the Nexus, but another will help the Nexus. And like, what decision do you make? And well, it doesn't matter, but they act like it does, and we're better at spotting that now than we were when the first Mass Effect series was going. The other big thing is just lots of unrelated side quests. That just gets tiresome after a while. I remember in the original, I always want to call it the original Fallout because I joined the Fallout series with Fallout 3. I really loved that game when it first came out because I was building up my own character, I was making all these decisions for myself, but eventually it did just grow tiresome. I've never played Skyrim because I could just tell it was going to be the exact same thing in a fantasy setting. A million side quests that don't really relate to each other that much. But at least you're playing as yourself. In this game, Scott Ryder, I guess you can customize his look, but the 4 different dialogue options for every single thing, you never seem to get the dialogue option that you think you're selecting. None of it seems to make a difference. There's just a lot of stuff going on in this game where he feels like you're being given the illusion of choice and control, and I think that's annoying. So let me get back to this. So these Codex entries really capture all these decision points that you made, and you think about them and like, does any of this really matter? You saved Moshae Jeffa, but angered her by refusing to destroy the Ket Exaltation facility. Jarl approved your decision, hoping the Resistance can one day rescue the innocent Angara still trapped inside. Does that matter, really? I kind of doubt it. Crisis in Habitat 7. During the trial by fire on Habitat 7, you tried to initiate peaceful first contact with the Ket despite their hostility. I can't imagine that matters. Maybe in dialogue that was planned for Mass Effect Andromeda 3, which will never happen. Explored an alien, like eventually by Mass Effect Andromeda 3, we'll probably be trying to make peace with the Ket, and dialogue will be affected by this, but not actual what you can do. Explored an alien laboratory, found a cave full of plant life, discovered an alien shuttlecraft, rescued Greer from his captors, which reminded me of poor Bean replaying the Crisis on Habitat 7 mission because she wanted to rescue Greer and she hadn't done it the first time. To which I was kind of teasing her and being like, that's not going to matter, right? It makes no difference, right? And she was like, yeah, but I still want to do it. And I think the truth is I understood exactly what she meant because I was going nuts I was really bothered by the idea of missing that too. We expressed doubts about accepting a role as a Pathfinder. Wow, that's huge. Trader and Kadar report. We worked with Reyes and we rescued that guy instead of killing him, which pissed off Sloane Kelly. But then later we sided with Sloane Kelly against Reyes, so I guess we kind of vaguely pissed off both potential allies. Whatever. EO's first outpost. We explored and activated a mysterious vault, which I think always happens. Despite the potential Ket threat, you guided the outpost as a scientific exploration instead of a military outpost. Can't imagine that matters. First contact with the Angara. Oh, this one's wonderful. You secure the trust of the Angara by proving yourself as an ally on both Vold and Havarl. You prove yourself an ally to the Angara by supporting their research efforts on Havarl. You prove yourself an ally to the Angara by aiding their fight against the Ket on Vold. Couldn't you have deleted the last 2 when you established the top one? Whatever, Codex. A crew like no other. We hadn't read about Drac yet. Like, just based on which ones had, like, little symbols to indicate there was new stuff. I reread Drac, but I don't feel like reading it again. What does it say? He hangs out on your ship even though it's kind of confined space for Krogan. He was woken up to help fight the uprising, but then they didn't give them what they said he was going to give them. They mentioned mid-level politician William Spender was the one who talked Krogan into putting down the rebellion. They've asked us to investigate. Then it comes on and said some smuggler. It gives us the backstory of how we became friends and we had a fight in a bar. We read about Cora Harper. I guess these are kind of worth reading. These are just there's a separate one where they actually have the biological details of your crew members. This is just like describing their relationships with you. So she's glad to have us as friends. We've become close. We are keeping the secret of that one Asari who had to kill some other Asari. Our bond has become more than professional. Despite her no-nonsense demeanor, Cora seems to enjoy flirting with you. Jaff, there's whatever. He talks about him and Gil Brody. Gil Brody was kind of a dick. Callow, although he hadn't done anything wrong, reached out to Gil to breach the gap. Liam Costa, there's very little to say about him. You can pause it and read it if you want. I'm kind of surprised. It says you've been through a lot together. Yeah, I'm kind of surprised we have less here. I guess I haven't, because if you don't do dialogue, if you don't flirt with him, it doesn't. If I'd flirted with him, it would probably add a sentence to say you flirted with him, but he's straight. Lexi Pataro is who she is. PB is turned flirty. You and PB have become closer, but you opted not to start a sexual relationship with her. What's wrong with you? Why wouldn't you want to have sex with blue octopus for a head girl? It's not really an octopus, but there's certainly like a mollusk thing going on. Veteranix, she likes to describe herself as someone who gets things done. And as ever, if someone describes themselves to you as something and tells you how they are, and take it with a grain of salt, means a lot more if a third party tells you, oh, so-and-so likes to get things done, other than I'm the one who likes to get things done. And then they talk about how she's got a sister, and she has to take care of her sister, and everything's driven by her sister, and that makes sense, because that's like the only personality that she seems to have. Gil Brody, kind of a dick. You and Gil are forging a close bond, and he's confiding in you and exploring major life issues, but he's still kind of a dick. Suvi Anwar, her character trait is religious. I said some snarky thing about how the writers of the game want to be able to sell to religious types, so they decided to have the scientific character. She is the science officer after all. Well, let's make her religious, and then we can kind of like shoehorn in dialogue about how science and religion don't have to be opposed, and maybe that will make this game more palatable to religious types. And I'm thinking they've already bought the game at this point, so maybe my own objections don't make sense. And Jal, he's a guy. He's relaxed and friendly. We have things to teach each other. I have not flirted with him. I think that, like, it seems like everything, this whole section is driven entirely by how many times have you flirted with this character. Agent of Change. Basically, this is saying we got the Turian Pathfinder. You secured Dr. Zoe Jean Kennedy and her son, the first human child born in Andromeda, pictured here, but not really. You are confident they will be safe, and punishment to fit the crime. This talking about William Spender, but it shows a picture of, I wanted to say Rax. His name isn't Rax. His name is Drac. I honestly couldn't remember for a moment. Even though Drac. I'm not kidding. I keep forgetting his name. Even though Drac wanted to kill this dude, we put him in prison because we figure if he was exiled and on the run from everyone that he'd fucked over, he would be murdered. This was kind of amusing, the ongoing psychological profile from the files of Tempest physician and psychologist Dr. Lexi Pataro. Right, I've completed a more thorough evaluation for now. Now this is what I'm delivering to Pathfinder HQ. I may send you another updates later if applicable. I observe that you display a tendency towards analytical thinking and intellectual curiosity. When interacting with others, even difficult personalities, you consider them more grounded and non-emotional response. This, I guess, that varies depending on which of the four lame-ass dialogue choices you do. Serious, comical, emotional, or logical. I guess it's called professional. Not serious, but anyway. However, I would say that this is odds with your tendency to act impulsively in many situations. You go with your gut rather than pause and wait for more information. Perhaps I should note that you are more impulsive in the field than you are with your affection. Whatever that means, we can keep that between us. Basically, this is the game's way of saying you didn't fuck PB. I would add, although you're quick to adjust to new and blah, blah, blah. I don't care anymore. But you can go read it if you want to. I already read this and then lost the video. It annoyed me. The ties that bind. This is more decision point stuff. Well, we mourn our father Alec. That's the thing. But we started the search for answers to the mystery about why we became a Pathfinder. We visited Sarah. Honest with we had our dialogue scenes with Sarah in the coma. And we were honest with her about what's going on. So I guess that matters. Exploring Helios. Power play for Gadara Port. We helped Sloan Kelly. It's forcing Reyes the Warren to exile. Krogan exiles. We helped the Krogans. And we gave them the drive core, even though they were going to use it to blow up the Nexus, and somehow that means that we're all friends again. We drove the Outlaws off HO47C and got enough Helium-3 to keep things going. Andromeda Initiative, known associates. PB had new info. You can read that if you want. They basically talk about... There's not a whole lot of interesting stuff to say here that we don't know. She somehow got out of hibernation earlier, skipped off of the Nexus and went out on her own and was exploring. She demonstrates extremely high intelligence and hyper-individualism. Her restlessness is typical of many Asari in their maiden phase of life, though few go so far as to visit another galaxy. We got Jaff. I don't think there's anything new to read about with him, or Vetra, or Gil, or Lexi. Drac, I feel like, had new stuff to read about, but it's just his background. He's older, I think. I think he's supposed to be older than, like, Rex, certainly than Grant. He was born in Tuchanka. He was young when the Krogan rebellions began, so he actually fought against Council forces, including, he says he killed 3 Spectres when the Spectres were a brand new thing. He became a mercenary like all the other Krogans who were not female. I guess that would be the male Krogans. He's got some cybernetic limbs and stuff. He wanted one last horizon, so he went to Andromeda. And his clanmates are chillaxing. There's nothing new about Sarah. Sam had new stuff, and therefore I finally remembered, hey, I should be doing silly voices, and I read all this in my Sam voice, but I don't really feel like reading it again. I think the only thing that was new was the last paragraph. I think the rest of it we'd already read. Recent removal of memory blocks has shed further light on my creation. Alec Ryder built me in part to help his wife Ellen Ryder survive a terminal illness, later classified as AEND, which is like automatic exile nexus disease. He hoped that my ability to affect my host's physiology could either prolong her life or help him to discover a cure. Though this hope was not fulfilled, Alec Ryder later integrated this ability into my core design. And then there's nothing new to read about Alec. There was nothing new to read about Korra, although I vaguely wanted to read it, but not really. We did learn some new stuff about Jal. I guess we just never did a Codex video since getting Jal, so I'll read this one in its entirety. Jal Amadarav is a trusted member of the Angaran resistance who has chosen to join the crew of the Tempest to observe and assess us. With our contact with the Angaran species in its earliest days, Jal is thankfully forthcoming on the subject of himself and his people. What records Jarl has made available show he is a middle child of a large and prestigious family. He was raised by multiple mothers, apparently customary for Angara, listening to tales of his family's heroic deeds and scientific discoveries from a young age. At 16, he followed in his grandmother's footsteps to fight against the Ket, joining the organized Angaran resistance as a tracker, scout, and extremely skilled sniper. In time, Jarl established himself as Ephra's trusted lieutenant. Though I only have a small baseline for Angara, voice stress and body language analysis suggest Jarl feels familial pressure to achieve his own heroic status. Jarl himself says that everyone needs their own story. So he's frickin' Orin from Final Fantasy X. This is your world now. Make your own story. So the initiative, what did I read about that was new here? Thankfully not much here was new. I spent a lot of time reading all the initiative stuff before. Gene Garson, I think they added this last paragraph. The last 2 paragraphs were new. And based on just the outfit, I briefly thought she was the mean lady who yells at you about needing more colonies, but she's not. Gene Garson is the person who was dead before it all started, whom we've only seen in pre-recorded messages and flashbacks. Based on newly uncovered information, it is now understood that Garson was murdered in the Nexus upon first arriving in Andromeda at the hands of an unknown assailant. Though the motivations for her murder remain unclear, it has come to light that a silent partner or benefactor was the true source of funding for the Andromeda Initiative, a secret that Garson kept from the public much to her later regret. And that's probably going to turn out to be Cerberus, and that's annoying because I was really hoping to not see much of Cerberus in this game since they got really sick and tired of hearing about Cerberus by the end of the original trilogy. And we've already run into them because we had two ex-Cerberus agents who were experimenting with mind control on the planet of outlaw people. And it was one of those things where you encounter people and they're in some kind of trouble, and then the people who are the place you need to go to figure out what's going on is 30 seconds away, and one dialogue tree there solves the whole quest. Ridiculous. Militia and Apex. Okay, I think that was all that was new here. The Nexus, Pathfinder HQ. I read about that. That was so we're right about where I was at the end of the last video. Pathfinder headquarters. The Nexus is designed to record and celebrate the achievements of the Pathfinders, while also providing a space for them to relax and regroup when off duty. It's like one room. Pathfinder HQ is not normally open to the general populace, but Director Tan has permitted guided tours since Arc Hyperions rendezvous with the Nexus. Pathfinder headquarters preserves mission significant items, mineral samples, and planetary surveys. If and when the initial settlement phase is complete, the Pathfinder HQ will contain a historical record for the Pathfinder efforts to colonize Helios. Meanwhile, Director Tan has established his offices here as part of his duties in overseeing Pathfinder operations. What else is new? Hydroponics. Nexus original encounter with the Scourge caused heavy damage to the station. Reports show that hydroponics suffered the brunt of the damage, deepening the resource crisis. In response, Dr. Elliot Camden, the new head of hydroponics, requested that plants be distributed throughout the station to prevent similar losses. According to the station resource allocation, hydroponics currently accounts for 38% of Nexus water ice consumption. After undergoing first osmosis to remove heavy metals, the water is divided into reservoirs for each plant variety, and a macronutrient mix is added. VI systems constantly monitor the pH, temperature, and dissolved solid count of these reservoirs. The flora and hydroponics are chosen by crop varieties and oxygen yield. Most of the Nexus oxygen comes from electrolysis. As plants improve overall air quality, psychological reports also show a marked improvement in station morale since hydroponics recovery. Yeah, people like to have plants around. Cultural exchange. Cultural exchange is created to support the Andromeda Initiative's principles of peaceful exploration of the new galaxy, given the high likelihood of contacting sentient alien life in Andromeda. Exchange is designed to educate and inform local species about the history and intentions of the Milky Way settlers. The hope was to avoid any misunderstandings which could lead to suspicion or hostilities, and instead foster an air of cooperation beneficial to all. I forgot I should be doing silly voices. With first contact established between the Initiative and the Angara, the cultural exchange has become the Initiative's de facto embassy. Behind the scenes, diplomatic staff are prepared to brief Nexus leadership on Angara culture and social cues. Orientation and language classes have begun for Angara who wish to have a more long-term role in the Nexus or serve in the militia. Leadership. Nexus News Service. As Milky Way species work to establish themselves in Andromeda, gathering and disseminating accurate information about galactic events in the public interest has fallen to the fledgling Helios News Service. Novice journalist David Qua came to Andromeda to report and learn under a seasoned editor, but when Qua's mentor was reportedly killed in the Nexus uprising, he was forced to set up the official source of news on the Nexus largely by himself. HNS operates with an arm's-length agreement and partial funding from the Andromeda Initiative, a model similar to some national news services in Earth's past. Like Pravda. This has raised questions among some colonies about the service's potential bias, though Qua stresses that if HNS has an agenda, it is to hold initiative leadership accountable when chronicling a new era of space exploration. And Cash. Overseer the Nexus. I don't feel like doing a voice now. Overseer the Nexus initial design and construction phase in the Milky Way. Nakmor Kesh is currently superintendent of the station. She has oversight of the Nexus proper, maintaining systems integrity, integrating any returning arcs, and continuing construction efforts. She is also considered a senior figure in Clan Nakmor, despite the departure of the majority of the Krogan from the Nexus. Cash describes her role as fixer-in-chief. She was born in Trunka, back at the Milky Way. She claims she was considered frail as a child, but an attentive upbringing by her grandfather, Nakmor Drak, allowed her to flourish. Unlike many of her kind, a younger Kesh made ample time to read, sparking her early interest in engineering and civil construction. Records from the Nexus Uprising show Kesh played a key role in keeping the station operating during the crisis. Her strong management and knowledge of the station makes her an irreplaceable member of the Nexus leadership, though minutes of official meetings suggest she and Director Jaron Tan are often at odds. Kesh's presence ensures the Krogan have the powerful voice of the Nexus.
Mr. Spender. When the Nexus first arrived in Andromeda and an uprising arose amongst the desperate crew, it was William Spender who convinced clan leader Nakamura to put down the mutineers. By all accounts, it did not go well. In return for her help, Mora claims that Spender, in his authority as Assistant Director of Colonial Affairs, promised equal status for the Krogan in any decision-making by way of a seat on the council. When the agreement came to light, Initiative Director Jarantan refused to honor it, and most Krogan left the Nexus. Privately reprimanded, but publicly credited for helping to stop the uprising, Spender maintained his position as a step away from Nexus senior leadership. After an investigation revealed that Spender quietly helped mutineers during the Nexus uprising, and was further using his position to smuggle Nexus supplies to key exile contacts on Katara, he was dismissed and jailed. And Addison. Foster Addison, a.k.a. Foster Brooks. Let's read up on the Pathfinders, and then we'll call this a video, and hopefully this one actually recorded. We know about AI Pathfinders. What about Asari Pathfinder?
Publicly stating that she was joining the Andromeda Initiative for spiritual reasons, Matriarch Ashara's centuries of diplomatic experience and popularity among the Asari made her a strong candidate as Pathfinder. In her younger years, she served the Asari Republic as a judge before joining Thessia's diplomatic corps, and was more recently the architect of peace accords that ended 7 centuries of bitter conflict in the Korma system. This conflict was between two groups that we won't bother to describe now because we didn't actually set this up as part of the backstory previously. When Matriarch Ashara gone, her former bodyguard, Sarissa Theris, has taken up the mantle of Asari Pathfinder. Sarissa is a famed combat veteran who has served in dozens of combat zones over centuries. Her psychological profile shows her to be both a charismatic leader and fond of high-risk, high-reward tactics. She's also not a matriarch. We haven't shown that many matriarchs yet, but they look kind of different and a little bit less sexy, so we didn't want to use one.
Implants, Pathfinder, and now the Turian Pathfinder. Born on Palaven and decorated engineer in Blackwatch, Mason Barrow was touted by the hierarchy to be a shining example of a Turian citizen. There were concerns among initiative leadership about whether or not he would leave his comfortable life behind to become the Turian Pathfinder, but Mason was eager, as long as he could name his replacement, Avedis Rix, a former Spectre. Internal emails. Yeah, see, internet isn't a thing in this game. It's extranet. Internal emails and screening interviews state Mason and Avidus met in the field together and suggest that their relationship may be more than platonic. Oh, yeah. This is like the ancient Roman thing here. Mason Barrow left the Milky Way aboard the Turian Ark Natanus in 2185. Despite his initial hesitation, Avidus Rix complied with Mason's last request to take up the role of Turian Pathfinder. A grief counselor was assigned to Avidus upon his arrival at the Nexus, but he is yet to show at a session. Well, I mean, mandatory grief counseling? I don't know. Let's read about Ark species. Oh, the humans and the Krogan, we have new stuff to hear about? Great. Alright, folks, well, next time we'll find out new stuff that we didn't know about humanity. Things that only Mass Effect Andromeda's Codex could tell us. On the MysteriousJG, thanks for watching. I'll see you then. Bye-bye.